Fire.
Welcome back to Starting Now. I'm your host, Jeff Sarris. This is the show where I talk to entrepreneurs to reveal the unexpected paths to entrepreneurship. Today, my guest is Matt D'Avella. Matt's most known for his feature-length documentary, Minimalism, which we were able to have a small part in producing with him, and also now his extremely successful YouTube channel, which just crossed 3 million subscribers. But shortly after the documentary came out, he decided to start building his own platform. And he has done an absolutely amazing job in not only creating entertaining and educational content that stands out, but like really building the persona and the, I hate to say even brand of Matt. It has been wonderful to watch, so it was really great to have a few minutes to catch up a bit and dive into his story. He's currently on hotel quarantine in Australia, as him and Natalie just moved there, at least for the time being. So we had a few interruptions with phone calls to the room and whatnot, but that aside, I think it was a great conversation, and I hope you really enjoy it. So without further ado, my conversation with Matt D'Avella.
I'm going to record a video here. I'll try to send it to you. I'll see if the connection is good enough to send it here, but it's a little bit shoddy right now. We're stuck in hotel quarantine at the moment, so just kind of making the best with what we got.
So yeah, what does that entail, hotel quarantine? I mean, can you leave the room or?
No, you're actually not allowed to leave the room. We got to Sydney. It's been a week now. We've been living inside this room here, which has been an interesting experiment, to say the least. We got here a week ago, and we were escorted from the airport via bus from the military to the hotel. They don't give you a key. You have to sign in, give all your information, let them know what flight you were on. That way they can do any contact tracing. They test you the second day and the 10th day that you're there. And on day 14, if you pass all the tests, you're allowed to go out into the world. And it's crazy because Sydney has done, and Australia has done an amazing job with managing COVID. And it's like they have, almost no cases here. No locally transmitted cases, which is amazing. And it's also kind of surreal because we looked outside the bus on the way from the airport to the hotel, and like seeing people walk around and like not wearing masks and not socially distanced was bizarre. But it's we'll be here for the next few months, so we're excited just to spend time with family and friends and make the most of it.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, that's wild that the military actually takes you straight from the airport over. I mean, did it seem like there were a lot of people, or do you sort of have any gauge for how many people are coming in and going through this?
They restrict the limit of how many people can come into Australia, so it wasn't easy. We booked our flights months ago, and all the flights are very expensive. We happened to luck out and get an affordable flight that went through Auckland, New Zealand, that came here. Affordable. It was like $1,600 one way, which, I mean, flying to Sydney, it's expensive no matter what. It's usually during this time of the year, it's like $2,500 anyway. But we've seen some direct flights $5,000 to Sydney. And it's like, so there's a lot of people that are stranded and can't afford the flights to get home, which is really sad. But we lucked out in finding some affordable flights. And yeah, they escort you right from the plane. There's 400 people, I think. I don't know whether, I think it's 400 people every week are allowed in Sydney. So it's not a lot.
Wow.
It's a really, really small amount of people that are allowed into the city and into the country in general. And so, we lucked out to get here. I would say that the military is not as intimidating here. They don't have like big AR-15 machine guns and stuff. Everybody was super friendly and polite. And so it was cool to just, and everybody was like super cheery about it. And, we lucked out. We got actually a balcony right here,
nice.
Which is probably all you could ask for in a situation like this, because at least we can have some fresh air for 2 weeks. What
is the week or so far entailed then, just being in those four walls. Are there multiple rooms, or is it really just like a single
Just
room
one
hotel?
room, man.
Ooh.
It's a hotel. Yeah, it's a hotel room. It's one room. We have a bathroom, obviously, which is great. I think all things considered, it's great. It's funny actually. When we got here, they gave us an option. We saw online when we got in that there were balconies. So we're like, oh, can we have a balcony? And the guy that was assigning the room said, oh, I was actually going to give you, since you're a couple, I was going to give you like a suite. So you could have like an extra couch and like a side like living room and then the bedroom. Or you can take the one with the balcony, which is just a simple hotel room. And so it became a hot debate where everybody was talking about it. Like all the military there was like, oh my God, what would you pick? Would you go with the balcony or the suite? And we decided that we would rather go with the balcony, because when we went into this whole thing, we were like, we weren't like, oh my God, we're not going to be able to sit on a couch for 2 weeks. It was, oh man, we're not going to be able to have fresh air and sunlight for 2 weeks. So we got the balcony, and we're definitely glad that we did.
For
But
sure.
yeah, it's a weird experience. I might do a video for it on the channel, because it's been kind of trippy, because when you're in one room, you're not allowed to leave for a week now. You start to get to you a little bit, but all things considered, it could be worse.
Yeah, I could imagine. And you have, I saw you posted yesterday that you are essentially moved out. I mean, you're out there now for just the foreseeable future. How is that feeling? Like, how has that been so far? Just 'cause that is a huge shift for you. I know Natalie's going back home and things, but yeah, I mean, to dump everything other than like some camera gear and things. How have you been holding up with that?
Yeah, well, you would know that it's, having made the minimalism documentary together, like it's not a foreign concept to me. I mean, I am a minimalist, but like I was getting into a groove of my life where, even though I was a minimalist and I am very intentional with everything I own, I was getting into a settle down place. I mean, this year, Nat and we were supposed to get married. COVID happened. We were supposed to get married in Italy, actually, and then that became very apparent it wasn't going to go through once the cases started to outbreak there in Italy. And so we ended up pushing it a year, and then we just had to push it another year and a half. So now it's like we have another basically 2 years until our wedding. So it's been kind of difficult to plan for the future. So that we had it all planned out, and we kind of joked about it. We're like, all right, so Q2 next year, we're going to be getting married. Then Q3, we're going to get a dog. And then Q2 next year, we're going to start trying to have kids and, maybe find a house to settle down, and then, really become rooted with where we were living. And then, with COVID in 2020, like so many people's lives, it just kind of got thrown up in the air. And we realized, like, what is life right now? Like we have some stuff. We have furniture. We don't have a ton of material possessions, but it still felt like it was holding us back. And then like I came up with the idea. I was like, hey, Nat, what if we just go to Australia for, a few months or so, 3-5 months. Let's just kind of like ride it out. Australia's doing great with managing COVID. Her brother just had a baby. And so we were like we really just want to be close with family right now. And it's been 2 years since we've been back to Sydney. And so it just made the most practical sense, instead of keeping our place and subletting it and having to worry about that. I've never been attached to, physical possessions. And so Natalie has a little bit, not as much, or not terribly bad compared to most people, but it was a conversation. I mean, we had to like really figure out what's the most practical way to go about this. And we decided, you know what, let's just like get rid of 95% of our possessions. We got a tiny storage locker, and, I put some of my extra camera gear in there. I put some Natalie's wedding dresses in there, and, just some things that, and also like really some small things like kitchenware, our toaster, like some small things that could fit in boxes. We're like, all right, we got like 6-7 boxes. Let's fill it up with the essentials, because like the one thing we didn't want to.
Maybe it's silly to sell as well, and then have to buy it again potentially shortly and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, there's the hassle of buying the stuff, which I think is definitely, a motivator to like just hold on to it. But then it's also like this has been something that I've been more and more focused on lately. I never got into minimalism for the environmental aspect of it, but like I just felt very guilty even about the things that we did buy new and then sold. You think about all the packaging and the shipping and everything that got it there. And so in the future, we're like, all right, like the next place we live, whether it's temporary or permanent, let's try to get as much used furniture as we can. Let's like go to flea markets. Because like, yes, we can afford brand new. Yes, it's a little bit easier to buy everything brand new from West Elm, but it feels a lot better to know that we're not contributing to a bunch of unnecessary waste for trendy furniture that's going to go out of style in like 3 or 4 years. And for the same reason, we kept a lot of our, the toaster and like the silverware and all that stuff, because we didn't want to like sell it or, drop it off at Goodwill. Who knows if anybody gets any use out of it. Now we know that we're going to be able to get use out of this stuff. But it really wasn't a lot. It was like 6 boxes and everything else was packed into a couple bags to come to Sydney.
Yeah, that has to feel good. And in terms of camera gear, do you feel any, right now, sort of day, whatever, 7, 8, 9, how are you feeling in terms of this new normal? Because you're going to be getting back to producing videos. Because I know you sort of, it looks like you put together all the videos ahead of time, to really, which makes sense, so you have things scheduled out, so you don't have to worry about it like right now. But I don't know how far ahead you are.
You would think I would do that.
Oh, really?
Honestly. Yeah, no, I mean, I have done that in the past. And like, I used to be really, really, really on top of things. Like, I mean, even like 2018, when the channel really started to grow, I mean, I would sometimes have like 4 weeks, scheduled out. And like, it was a great feeling to be able to have that runway. I think these days I've just been so busy. Like, we just put out a trailer for the new documentary, which is releasing January 1st. And so like that was a huge project. And like whenever I launched a course platform this year as well. So it's like I had those 2 huge projects, and balancing that with YouTube, there's no way that you can get ahead. And then also planning to like sell all of our stuff and move halfway around the world. It was like, there was no chance for me to get ahead and maintain my sanity. And so I found in instances like this, when I do feel busy, I'm like, I'm not going to kill myself trying to get ahead. I'm going to take things slow and just kind of put out whatever I feel comfortable putting out. And then if I take some weeks off, I'll take some time off. I edited this video at the most recent video at the hotel here, the one of us like are moving. Like I did have to plan out like, all right, well, what videos do I want to make? I need to shoot all this footage. Like I'm in the middle of a 30-day experiment of using a flip phone for 30 days. And so I had to plan that out. Like I'm like, all right, well, I need to shoot this footage. I need to shoot some cinematic B-roll while we have furniture in the apartment. And it was a stressful week because now it's like, we just sold the dining room table. And I'm like, oh my God, I need to like I need to film these shots for this video before you sell this thing tonight. So it was a little bit hectic, but yeah, playing the best we could. And to answer your question about the gear, it's been nice. Like I wanted to make sure I'd be okay with like really a limited strappy set of gear. And so like a month before we knew we were flying, I started using nothing but that gear. So I was like, all right, nice. As difficult as it is, I'm going to pack this C500 away. I'm going to pack all these like lenses that I'm not going to bring with me. And I'm just going to shoot with my travel kit, so to speak. And it's been working out well. I mean, I'm still kind of, the laptop is an issue for sure. Like I've been shooting 1080p, which is nice because that's manageable. But even the MacBook Pro, like the battery dies super fast. And like the thing starts to heat up, and I'm used to editing on an iMac Pro. So that's one challenge I'm navigating. And technically I'm probably going to start like working more with proxy files and kind of, I don't know how technical we get here. And like how, I know you talk a lot about creative stuff, but I don't know.
Oh no. Yeah. I mean, it's just us talking. Yeah, it's not, I mean, I really feel like it's a small podcast, still growing, still figuring it out. And it's really just a conversation just to catch up. So yeah, don't feel any pressure on anything.
No, I screwed it up, Jeff. Start over.
Yeah. No, it's perfect. Yeah, that is the thing. Like I'm still running, so we don't upgrade gear like ever. I have the GH4s, those are handful of years old. I'm still using the MacBook Air from, I think it's 2013. And it's like, it's funny. So I've had an iMac for a while, so that is where I edit video. But yeah, I'd have to upgrade and do things to edit on the computer. I couldn't imagine downsizing now after that screen. Because I mean, Final Cut, if the few times I've opened Final Cut on the MacBook, it's a little cramped, just a little bit,
Yeah. You definitely have to. I mean, you do feel a little bit claustrophobic editing on the MacBook Pro when like you first get into it, and it's or when you first like downgrade from like a really big iMac screen down to the MacBook Pro. But I've found that it's you start to get used to how to optimize your screen, how to hide certain windows so you only have the most important stuff there. Because like with the iMac Pro, you could just leave certain panels open. You can leave the color grading wheel open and it's really not going to get in the way. But like, it has been a bit of a learning process. But that's how I started out, though. You know, for years I edited on a MacBook Pro, and so without having an external monitor, and so it really didn't bother me all too much to kind of downgrade. You just have to kind of get used to it. We'll see how it goes. I mean, I'm not fully satisfied with I have the R5, the Canon R5 now, and I'm not fully satisfied with like the 1080p on it, which I have been using, and so I think I want to start shooting more in the 4K that comes built in, but that's when my computer really starts to put up a fight. And so we'll see if the proxy files work. If they don't, I just have to figure out a solution because it's difficult, right? Because I'm going to be here for 5 months and I don't want to buy a new computer here. But we'll see. I don't know. That's a future Matt problem.
Oh yeah, for sure. That's the way to do it. Always leave it for future Matt. I love that.
Yeah, exactly.
So the first doc was now, 5 years ago when it was 6 years ago? When was it started? 2014?
Well, it started, 2014 is when I remember January 1st, 2014, like I got the first little bit of B-roll, but it was like the documentary didn't really start shooting, I think, for a few months after that. Yeah,
and we probably met maybe 4 or 5 months before that for the test run for the tour, I think it was, right? In New York City at the one bookstore. Yep. Yeah. So, I mean...
Yeah, that was summer 2013, I think. Is that right?
Yeah. That would make sense.
Something like that.
Yeah. A few things have changed since then. A little different.
A couple things.
But yeah. Bit. So, the process of that film, I mean, that was several years, super tiny team. The new documentary, that one is a Netflix original. Netflix bought it. Mm-hmm. But now you've been spending three plus years shooting, reshooting, changing the whole direction, and it's a much larger team. What are some of the things that maybe you learned from the first doc that you applied to the second, and how did it compare having more resources, a larger team behind this one?
I feel like every time I finish a really big project like this, I'm like, oh my God, like I would have done so many things differently. Like, oh, I should have learned my lesson from the last one, that I shouldn't have done that again. And it's like, you're always learning, and you're always trying to kind of improve upon the things that you learned from the last one. And I actually just had a call with the production team that I had shot with the last documentary, or the most recent documentary with, just to be like, all right, guys, what did we do wrong there? What should we not have done? What could we do differently next time? And some things were like, just shooting on, we had, it ended up being, because my DP is the one that did the color grade, and he's the one that did the color grade on minimalism as well. And the one mistake that we really made was that we just shot on too many cameras. And that's in part because of COVID. COVID happened, and then we had to get really scrappy, and then I had to shoot a lot of stuff in the apartment by myself. And so I'm shooting with a different camera than he's shooting, and then we shot with reds for the main cinematic stuff, and there were two different kind of reds. And then when all that comes into play and he's color grading it, it's really difficult to match and make the whole film feel kind of cohesive and tied together in a way that, when I shot minimalism, it was all by myself. I shot on maybe 3 cameras, right? If you count the GoPro, which was like maybe just a couple shots in the doc, but it was pretty straightforward. And so like, that was kind of a big lesson. I think that what I'm realizing now is that you never really have the story locked in until you start shooting. And, the one mistake that we made on this film is that we initially set out to shoot it as a kind of like strictly like a monologue with recreation scenes. So everything was really cinematic. Everything, like, it was amazing to be on these productions, and also at the same time equally draining. Like, I'm not used to those kind of production days, although it seems to be pretty standard in Hollywood, where you have like 12 to 14 hour days of filming. I mean, for me, it was probably like 14 to 16 hours, because I'm, up in the morning prepping the shot list and making sure everything is airtight, and then you're just shooting day after day after day. And so it is quite exhausting, and it was a totally different style of filmmaking, because it's like, all right, well, we have 30 shots that we can get today, and that's all we can get. And this is not like, and we have to have every single shot planned out meticulously, because you have 30 people on set that are doing the costume design, the hair, the makeup. They're doing the making sure that the set is ready to go. And like we had one room where like it doubled as 2 different set locations. So we ripped all the furniture out, and then we like had it like set up where it was like Ryan as a child painting his house with his dad. And then we brought all the furniture back in and then like reset and then shot a different scene. And now it wasn't Ryan's childhood home or the home he was painting. It was the Josh's mother's house, and it was cluttered and filled with stuff. So it's like, just to be able to manage all those kind of shots and bringing stuff in and out and figuring out when to do everything, you can only get like 20 to 30 shots in a day. And we moved really, really fast for a big production, or at least a bigger production than I was used to. This wasn't like Lord of the Rings, but it was still like a lot of planning. And so like, to a degree that could be frustrating for a filmmaker like myself, who is used to do it yourself, very scrappy. Like, let's just shoot the damn thing. Like, I could get like 50 shots in 2 hours if I was just by myself. Granted, it's not going to look as beautiful and it's not going to be as polished and everything. But I think there were lessons there in terms of the kind of films that I like to make and what I would want to do on the next one. And I think I like the more documentary feel. I mean, the thing is that we set out to do this thing like more like narrative style feature film, like recreations and a monologue, and it was like all beautiful. But then, you know, when we chopped it up with Netflix and we started talking about it, it became clear that the direction of the film needed to head more into a documentary and less into a film. So it didn't feel enough like a documentary. It didn't explore enough. We didn't have any interviews. We didn't, you know, it just didn't uncover enough that was different from the first film and go in kind of a deeper direction. So I think that's what, there's a lot there, but I think those are kind of like the big lessons, at least personally for me.
Yeah. And initially it was sort of bridging the gap between like a comedy special and excuse me, comedy special and Josh and Ryan's tour, essentially their speech, everything they would do on tour. So, and I know you had shot that several times, did it just right, had a beautiful space that you guys got in LA.
Yeah.
And I mean, there was so much that went into it. And essentially you made a left turn at the one point. Was it something that you guys were feeling when you were seeing it? Was it something when you really came together, sort of got some distance, spoke with the team and like the Netflix team and everyone? Where was the biggest sort of impetus to make the shift?
Yeah, that's a great question. So like you said, you know, we initially, I mean, I forget even what year it was. It must have been like 2017 is when late 2016 is when Minimalism released. Early 2017, we're like, all right, let's go, baby. Let's get back into it. Let's start shooting something. So we just like hit the road and did the same thing where we're like, all right, let's hit the road and just start filming. And then I was like, quickly started to realize this feels like we're doing minimalism again. And I'm sorry, I'm like, I don't know, I'm hiccuping. But I was like, it feels like we're doing minimalism again, and it just doesn't feel like, it doesn't feel like we're going in a different direction with it. And so then, but we just traveled around the country for a month or two, just like capturing footage, and some of it ended up making it into the film, but most of it didn't. And then it was this idea came across where we're like, hey, Josh and Ryan have been giving this talk for like 8 years now. It's a beautiful talk. It's touched a lot of people. Can we do something where we kind of create this monologue, this we capture this performance, and then it's almost like a comedy special. And now there's actually more of a precedent. Brene Brown, while we were during production, she came out with like a live talk on Netflix, and so there's like kind of like now a format for that. It's being done, but at the time that just wasn't out there. And so we tried to do that, and we tried to do it ourselves. We didn't actually have Netflix on board at the time in the very beginning. We just said, all right, let's try to just kind of record our own special. And it was like, let's get a beautiful warehouse. Let's fill it with 200 people 2 times over. We did 2 shows in one night. One oversight that we didn't realize was that we didn't have enough bathrooms. There was 2 bathrooms in the facility for 400 people. And so, that was a big problem. Like, I think that the toilets ended up getting clogged, and like, it was a real big mess, literally and figuratively.
Sean.
It's all Sean. And so like that, the problems that we had with that are, one, Josh and Ryan put all the money into it, but I think it was like $30K or so, which sounds like a lot of money, but it's not a lot of money when you're talking about a big production, 5 cameras and whatnot. And like, just like we had inexperience at set design. Like, I'm a doc filmmaker at heart. Like, doing something like this was totally different. We just didn't have the budget to really make it look great, and we just didn't have the right team to really find the right space and build out the right set and all that stuff. Like that stuff is really, really expensive. There's reasons why Netflix and HBO comedy specials cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, and it's because if you want to do it right, you have to really put the money down. And so that was just visually, it just kind of felt kind of congested. The shots weren't looking great. Like, and the background was just like a pure white brick wall, which kind of like sounds cool, but it was just kind of like the stage was too small and there wasn't enough depth, and it just felt a little bit awkward. That was like probably the biggest problem. And then on the day of, we also had Josh and Ryan. Like we didn't have a dress rehearsrsal, which I definitely wish we had done a dress rehearsal, because Josh ended up wearing these like really tight pants. Like they were a little bit too tight. I've never even seen him wear these pants any other time, but I think he wanted to go a little bit professional with it. So he like wore these really tight pants and like a button-up shirt tucked in, and then Ryan straightened his hair, and it just looked kind of weird, and he kept touching his hair the whole time. But like their image, they didn't really look or even feel like themselves, I don't think. Like their whole story is like, we were suit and tie corporate guys, and then we became minimalists, and then here they are on stage looking like suit and tie corporate guys. And so it was like, that was a big like, that really just didn't fit right, because I just don't think they felt like themselves, and I don't think they looked like themselves. They just weren't comfortable, because it was a lot. We had to put a lot on the line. They put their own money into it. I put like so much time into like planning and producing this thing with them, and then directing it. And so, sorry about that. I'm using my wife's phone. Natalie, hi. That's it. Sorry about that.
It's all good.
I have a hard. I thought that was like. I was like, is that my time for when I have to stop? I have a hard out at 10 o'clock, by the way, because Nat's got another call in here, and we can only do one call at a time.
Oh yeah.
10 o'clock my time. So
yeah, so like a half hour,
12 hours or whatever. Yeah. So yeah, basically, it just wasn't working out, and so we decided to just figure out, I edited it, and we did a couple versions, and then we felt okay about it. Like it was all right. We could have released it to Josh and Ryan's audience, and all would have been okay. But then we decided, all right, how do we take this thing to a different level? How do we maybe like rethink what we did here and use this as kind of like the foundation to build something different and better? And that's when I approached Josh, and I was like, hey, why don't we just cut a trailer down from this, something like 2 minutes, really compelling, and then we pitch it to Netflix, and let's just see if like they can help us fund this next phase of the project, because what we did wasn't working. Maybe they'll see the vision here. I wasn't really sure they would pick it up. I thought they wouldn't, actually, because I was like, I didn't really believe in the project at that time with like the way that we had shot it. I was like, oh, I just don't think that they're going to see this and be like, oh, we're not going to give these guys money to make a documentary. Like this looks terrible. And so, but they saw it, they believed in the idea, and they thought that it had an audience on their platform. And so within a couple months of pitching it to them, they agreed to sign on. And then it was like probably a 1.5 year process of, through COVID. COVID probably delayed us by like 6 months or so. But it was probably a 1.5 year process of producing it and filming it and editing it. And we went through 20 versions on the edit. But at the end of the day, like it got better and better and better. And every version, we pushed it a little bit further. And I'm really proud of what we put together in the end.
Yeah, it's exciting. And yeah, it's coming out in just a couple weeks. I mean, when will this episode will probably come out, I think the week that the doc comes out. So yeah, it's
nice.
Really exciting. But yeah, so I wanted to dive into YouTube then. So this is a dramatic shift since we last saw each other. You have built an amazing YouTube platform, and it's like, I guess first, in your wildest dreams, what did you sort of expect to be building, and what types of outcomes did you sort of see?
Yeah, my dream was 15,000 subscribers. Like that was truly like, that's when I was like, all right, if I get 15,000, like that's like, I'll be successful. Like that will really feel like something. And I never in a million years, just a couple days ago, like a day or two ago, I just passed 3 million. And like, I never could have imagined that many people would click a button because of videos that I've made. But it's really, really, it's really cool. It's really gratifying. I think like you learn a lot of lessons along the way. And like one of them is that like a number on a screen doesn't change who you are, or it shouldn't. Like, obviously there are some people that let like fame or YouTube fame, whatever it is, like numbers on a screen, Instagram followers, change who they are, and then they start treating people differently. And that to me is just the most kind of bizarre thing. I think a lot of people are just the way that they are already. Like, they've got a bit of an ego. That's why they get into this kind of world. And then they end up, it gets even bigger because of a following that they build. But that's obviously like never the reason why I got into it. I just wanted to, for me, it was like we put out Minimalism, and then I was like, that was amazing. Like, people responded, people loved the film. And I think it gave me confidence to say, all right, if I could, like, I want to be able to just do this whenever I want. I want to be able to make any film I want and not have to. I love Josh and Ryan. They're amazing. But then, like, what if I wanted to do a film on self-development or something like totally different? Or like, I had no idea what I wanted to make in the future, but I wanted to be able to open up my horizons to create films outside of just minimalism and to be able to do it on my own and create some self-reliance. And so that's when I decided to like shift gears and say, all right, I don't know what it's going to be. I've always been, like you guys, like a fan of like blogs, and have always like kept up with like, the whole blog movement was really one of the early online movements of like creators and writers. And so that was hugely inspiring to me, like 2010 or so. And then, seeing podcasts rise, and I wasn't even big into YouTube. Like I thought I was going to be a podcaster. And so like the first thing was just nothing but podcasting. And that was a majority of my effort. Although I luckily started to continue to experiment with filmmaking and making videos for myself and finding a style. And it was like a year or so of just kind of I don't want to say grinding, but like it was, at one point I just stopped taking all client work. So I stopped making money, and I was like, all right, I got like 2 years or a year, maybe, luckily Nat had a full-time job and she was doing well. And so I had like some runway in the bank. And so I was like, all right, let's just like see how far I can push this thing and see if I can get 15,000 subscribers. and then I did get 15,000.
What was the client work at that time? Was it mostly like, so you were like wedding videography and things? After the film, what did your like career look like when you were starting this?
Yeah, so I hadn't done wedding videos in, I guess, a few years, up until Minimalism. That's how I started out. I did like 40 or 50 weddings very early on in my career. It really helped me to build up a lot of experience. And then like for the few years after that, and even during the making of Minimalism, I did a lot of, I don't want to say corporate, it was more like startup tech companies between San Francisco and New York. Doing brand videos for companies. A documentary was funded through one of these companies called Design Disruptors, which was my second feature doc. And so,
was that released anywhere? Like publicly?
Unfortunately, I do not think it ever was. It was a company that made it. And so they did like this whole theatrical run where they did like put it up, have free screenings all over the place, where like we filled up like the London Palladium with 2,000 people. Granted, they didn't pay for a ticket, but like still pretty awesome. Cool to hear that, we filled up the London Palladium. But so it was, mostly like freelance work leading up to it. I forget your initial question.
Oh no. Yeah. It was mostly just exactly that. Like where's your income coming from at that time? What was your freelancing? So you're doing more like corporate work, startups and things.
Yeah, and it was going really well. And like that was actually, I think that's a difficult decision to make, because I was making six figures as a freelancer and it was going well and my income kept rising, and I was like, oh, this is great. Like I could keep doing this forever, and then I'd have a really fat bank account in the next decade or so. And then to make the decision to be like, all right, well, you know what, actually, I've done this. I've proven that I can do this, and I could always come back to it if I want to. But what I haven't proven is that I could kind of build my own thing and, start my own content business and start a YouTube channel and grow an audience. Because growing an audience just seemed like the most elusive, far out there thing that would be impossible. It seemed like you had to be there at the beginning of the internet to build an audience. Like you had to be at the beginning of MySpace or the beginning of YouTube or the beginning of blogging and catch the ride at the beginning of that wave to be able to do it. And so I was like, YouTube has been around for like 8 years. Like, how am I possibly going to come in here and make an impact and get seen over all of the noise? And I didn't think it was going to be possible, not to the degree I did. And like, I was like, so I was like, if I could just kind of grind it out and get 15,000 subscribers, I'm sure that would be enough for me to be able to make an income off of this. Like, and I would have been happy with like 40K a year if I could just make whatever I wanted.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's a great point, because we always feel like it's too late. Like, no matter what it is, it's just, especially because we're the same way. Like you, we haven't built our own audience. We haven't built a community, but we've been behind the scenes with like the Minimalists and a bunch of other platforms where they've built the community. We've found the revenue streams. We've built sort of the business side of it. And so it feels daunting to just be starting from nothing. But the beauty is you built the credibility. Like, your style is part of what I think really set you apart early on, because you took and brought filmmaking into YouTube. Like, obviously there's filmmakers and there's people doing great stuff, but you stood out almost from day one. How would you define what your style is in terms of a content creator?
Yeah, I think it's interesting you say that, because there obviously there's a whole subset of YouTubers that are filmmakers, like Peter McKinnon and Maddie H and Potato Jet, so many, and Sarah Dici, so many amazing creators on YouTube that are also filmmakers that I love. But like, yeah, I think what I brought that was perhaps even different from what they create is more of that documentary style. And it did take me a while to find my footing. And because like it wasn't natural for me to put myself on camera, to record myself through audio, to tell stories in that way, because I had always told other people's stories. And like when we did minimalism and when I did client work, my voice was rarely ever in there. I would never be a part of the production that I was making. I would just be filming it, and I had to figure out a way to tie these interviews together to make it make sense and make it compelling. And so I kind of took that experience of storytelling and like kind of Frankensteined it together into my own little thing on YouTube. And so, there's different styles on throughout many of the videos that I make. So like if you look at some videos, like I learned how to lucid dream. I forget, was it called? Like I learned how to lucid dream. I think it was something like that. Just like I learned how to lucid dream. I don't know if it was like a 30-day experiment or what, but it was basically like I did an interview with somebody, and then I have voiceovers, and I'm talking to camera, and I use the cinematic B-roll to help tie the story together. But then I interweave that interview throughout the piece, and it really feels like a documentary. And like this it's something that like, it's hard for me to say because I wasn't really paying attention much to what other people were doing at the time, which is probably a really good thing. And so I didn't really I don't think anybody was doing that at the time. And so like, there were probably a couple people that were like close to it, but I think that I came in with maybe a little bit more of the cinematography expertise, a little bit more of the editing chops. I think when it comes to like what made my channel successful, by far it's the editing. I've put in so much. I've put in well over my 10,000 hours at editing, and I know that like I can chop up some video. So like that's usually the easiest thing, and it's also for me the most enjoyable. I truly love it. So like, I could cut some videos in a few hours, maybe a day. It really depends on the complexity of it and like, what's going on. But I never have any doubts there. I always know, like, if I have a compelling story that I've written, that I've shot, and I've got all the pieces I need, then I'm confident I can put it together and I can find the story through that. That's just like the confidence that I've built through doing this for over a decade. But yeah, it was like the style kind of found itself. Like I started out doing the first video that really broke. I don't know why I even there were two early videos that I did that were in the style that eventually evolved into really being my voice. Because if you look very early on, 2017, you'll see some like Casey Neistat type vlogs. Because like I saw Casey Neistat and I was like, oh, okay, like I guess I'll just do vlogging. And then I'm just like, I'm not good at vlogging. So that didn't work out.
I know I nudged you a little bit because we were talking at that time sort of about what you're doing. And I was like, oh, Casey does great stuff. He has like a narrative, like a 3-act arc in the things. But yeah, sorry. No. Yeah.
You led me astray, man. What'd you do? I do remember that though. I hit you guys up. I hit Anthony Ongaro up, Josh Milburn, and that's pretty much it. And I was like, hey guys, I need advice. And I think this is like really good for anybody who's like just kind of getting into it. It's like reach out to people that that are doing it and see what they've learned and see if they can give you any advice along the way. And then it's just really helpful to have kind of a close circle that understands what you're going through. And then like if you have any trouble along the way, you can always bounce ideas off them. But that was hugely helpful, because part of that was the experimentation. And like I didn't become a full-time vlogger like Casey Neistat, but like I do now include vlog style elements into my videos that I think help to elevate them and add more to them than would otherwise if I didn't have those. So it's like, it's kind of, again, it's like the Frankenstein approach where you're just taking a bunch of things and trying to tell the most compelling story that you can with it. But yeah, it was like the first 2 videos that I made that really, I think, started to set the tone was, I think one video was along the lines of like how I travel simply. And it was, I just shot like a vlog, not even a vlog. It was just like really beautiful B-roll of like a trip to Hawaii that my wife and I took. And so I shot all that footage, and then I just recorded voiceover about how traveling light and, you know, being a minimalist or blah, blah, blah. And then like that video didn't really like take off, but it was like, I felt good about it. I was like, oh, this is kind of fun. It's kind of like a little manifesto type video. A little bit corny probably looking back on it, but I was like, this is like a change in direction because it's polished, it's tight, it tells a compelling story. And then the very next one after that was my minimalist apartment. And that was like, I had seen other people create apartment tours and minimalist apartment tours. And I was like, I could do that. And then I just brought my own little cinematography to it. I added a little bit of humor. I had, you know, beautiful music and a voiceover of me talking about my place. And then it was like 5 minutes or less than 5 minutes. And I put it up online, and then the views just kept coming in. And then that's like, you know, the first week it was 20,000 views, and then 100,000. And then it was my first video to break 1 million. And then I was like, oh my God, that was just an apartment tour video. Like, what have I been doing for the past year and a half? Like, I should have like done that in the beginning. But then I just set the tone for the style. And like, I was like, oh, okay. When I invest time and energy and I really try to make something special, people pay attention. And also, obviously, I made something that was searchable, that was clickable, that was like something that people wanted to look at. But it was also the fact that I just like, I took a lot of time to make a really great video.
Yeah. And I'm curious because I think a big part of the appeal of everything that you do is you're documenting. Like you set out on these challenges. I mean, because obviously you have the things like minimalist tour, the apartment and things like that, but setting out on your 30-day challenges, you're bringing people along for the ride. So you've created sort of a reason for the video and people can really relate to you. I'm curious, since it is a documentation of your experience, what does your writing process look like? Because the script and everything that you do is, I think, key. Like it's a huge part of the preparation, but I'm curious like about your approach to planning for a video and writing and whatnot.
Yeah, so I think each one's a little bit different. If I'm doing a simple video that's like 5 things I learned from my 20s or something like that, like you can just write the thing like from beginning to end, and it doesn't take a ton. But like those aren't as fun for me. Those are sometimes those feel more like work for me. And so I try to do that less and less often, but sometimes you're like in a creative rut and you're like, I just need to do this to get through to make the next one. And so the videos that I really love doing like are videos like the 30-day experiments, because they do feel like a journey, and they're really fun, and like often come up with like really fun and, you know, interesting sketches and different ways to kind of document that journey. But the process of those is kind of interesting. So I'll usually start filming a couple of things on day one of like, hey, I'm about to start this journey, blah, blah, blah. Or I'll like kind of, if it's important, like, so say for instance, taking cold showers for 30 days, you want to get that first cold shower. That's like a big moment in the video. And so like, I obviously like captured from day one, everything. Sometimes I'll go about it, just documenting it by writing out how I feel through like the first week or two. And then I'll just vlog different moments. If I'm having a particularly hard day with intermittent fasting, like, oh my God, I just like want a burrito right now, but I can't eat it. Like I'll just grab the vlog camera and then I'll just kind of film some stuff and then throw that into a folder and kind of just compile those kind of vlog elements to piece it together. And then towards, maybe halfway through, I can start to write it because I'm starting to get an idea of where this thing's going. And then really in like the final week, I can really write like the full video, figuring out where I can patch in these vlog style pieces. Sometimes I can shoot like all the A-roll, which is just like me, the kind of the polished direct to camera at one point during the end. And like, you know, I might start out the video by being like, so I decided to experiment with this to see what would happen, right? And it's like, because a lot of times you feel like, oh my God, well, I missed the first day, so I didn't get to say I'm about to start this journey. But you're like, you don't have to do that. You can tell the story in a way that's after the fact. But I always say too, like, I think the one thing that separated my videos apart and like my experiment videos is that I always showed people what the process was like versus just telling them, because there's so many videos online of like, and I looked them up after I put out my video, and like they would pop up in my feed. Like, I tried cold showers for 30 days, and I'd watch them, and it was just a video of somebody talking for 10 minutes on camera about them taking cold showers. And I was like, people want to see it. People want to like see the experience. They want to see the pain and what you went through and what you learned from the thing. But yeah, so like the final week of a 30-day experiment is when I really do a majority of my filming. I'll get like really intentional. I'll create a full shot list of like, if it's cold showers, I want like close up of the handle turning and all these different things that can help me patch the video together. And then the voiceovers, and sometimes I'll kind of come up with like these little sketches that we can put in the middle of it just to add a little bit of humor, YouTube humor.
Those are great. Like all the humor. I love how you inject all the humor in. It's just so much fun. Like there's one thing. So I want to ask you just how it is dealing with fame, because now like you are a personality. There's a subreddit, Matt Diavella. You've probably come across it, but I had no idea there is a Matt Diavella subreddit with people in there devoting their time to just talking about you and what you're up to. It's just pretty wild. But how have you sort of dealt with this new persona? Because I mean, there's sort of the character of Matt, which there's so many different ways I can go with this. I know you don't have too much time, so I don't want to go too deep, but you sort of have like Matt versus like the Matt on screen. But knowing you personally, I feel like those versions are very, very similar, if not truly you, which I think is sort of rare. How have you dealt with the experience of building such a large platform and being someone that people look towards and recognize?
Well, I think, to answer the one part of your question, I think if there's any part of me that's like not, that actually doesn't line up with who I actually am. If you watch my videos versus knowing me in person, it's that like I'm not as polished, like, or you know what I mean? Like it takes me a lot of time to like think through these ideas, and like I could just kind of riff off the top of my head about a particular topic like productivity, but I know that I could do a much better job if I sat down, write it out, and really kind of thought it through to make sure I say something that's really going to help and add value. So I would say I'm not as polished in real life, but like I do appreciate that. Like I do try to just be as much as myself as possible. Oh, hold on a second. We got a phone call coming in.
Oh yeah, it's all good.
That might be a health checkup. Sorry, 1 second.
Yeah.
They do like health checkups every day, just to make sure that you don't have a cough or scratchy throat or anything.
Oh, gotcha.
They might be telling us that we have COVID. I don't. Okay. What was that, Nat?
Linen change today.
Oh, linen change today.
Oh,
exciting.
Big day.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Yeah, we've dirty sheets for a week, and now we get to change them. So that's cool. Sorry about that. So, where was I? Oh yeah. You were asking about like fame and stuff. I don't know. It's weird because like to be totally honest, like in the beginning, you get a little bit paranoid, I think, like when it first started happening, and it feels silly even saying this, but sometimes when I got recognized for the first time in person, then all of a sudden you start to think about like, oh my God, does everybody notice me? Does everybody recognize me? And they don't. Yeah. Nobody does. But it is like, I always get surprised if somebody, recognizes me in person. I think what's really beautiful about the lane that I've carved out on YouTube and others who have done a similar thing to myself is that I'm talking about self-development and productivity. And so like there is YouTube celebrity and like genuine celebrity and like TikTokers and stuff that are famous, and like they have a primarily younger audience with tons of time on their hands, and like they're like ringing their doorbells and they're showing up at their house. I've never had somebody show up at my house. There's the level of, if you want to call it fame, that I have. It's great because I don't even feel it. It's like I do get recognized from time to time. Obviously, like with COVID, I don't go outside, so it's been a different experience. But like it doesn't happen that often to where it changes my life. And every time that somebody does recognize me, it's like, it's just cool. And I'm always like taken back and surprised. And I always try to like ask questions and learn a little bit about them. But it's, I don't know. It's hard to say. Cause like at the end of the day, like for the most part, my experience with it are numbers on a screen. Mm-hmm. And like, it's not, you're not a rock star. You're not up on stage in front of 100,000 people. Like you put a video out there and then you have maybe 500,000 people watch it independently in the comfort of their own home. So it's cool. Like it allows me to do more creative things. It allows me to get kind of take my time to figure out what I want to build. And, now I can do a feature documentary, release it straight to my audience. And that's something I can do now that I didn't have the power to do before. So there's a lot that I'm grateful for with it.
Absolutely. And it just gives so much more opportunity because you are the channel that you're able to send things out from. So real quick, I just wanted to touch on the business of YouTube and like because going in, I'm sure you knew like ad revenue, but like over time you get like sponsorships and then you set up Patreon, you have your course. Sort of what was your approach to monetization? And maybe for someone just starting out, what kind of advice could you give them?
Yeah. So in the very beginning, I didn't monetize anything. I don't know if you remember, like in the very beginning, I didn't even do Patreon for a while. I was like, I just need to make something popular first. If people aren't coming, then I'm not going to make money. Oh man, sorry. It's like the worst podcast. I'm a terrible person. Oh shit. We only have 5 minutes too.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. That's why just this one thing, then we'll let you go.
Yeah, no, we'll have to do this again another time. But, so basically, yeah, I didn't monetize for the longest time, and I decided to just kind of, I was like, just because I was like, let me make something popular first. Like if people start coming and start watching my videos and it gets big enough that I can monetize it in some way, then I'll figure out that decision later. So I started out with Patreon, and that was great. The problem with Patreon, as a lot of people will learn, is that if you do want a lot of people coming, you need to promote it constantly. Like you need to because you're going to have churn every month. So people are going to be leaving. So you need to promote it. And you also need to give them a reason to stay. And so that means, or to even sign up in the beginning. So you have to create additional content. And so in the beginning, I think I overpromised with too much. Like I'm doing vlogging, I'm doing all this stuff. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm burning out. So I pulled it back, and now I just do a secret podcast. And I don't even promote it that much. But like, so that was like that got me through the first year of monetization, and it did really well. And then again, I was like, oh man, I feel like I'm working so freaking hard to keep this Patreon going, and when I could just click a button. I was like, I could click a button and then I could, maybe even make up for all of that Patreon money by just turning ads on. Mm-hmm. And so it was tough because for a year I said, all right, like guys, support this channel. I'm trying to stay ad free, whatever. Clicking that button was the best thing I ever did. It's like, it made my life so much easier. Mm-hmm. I was able to hire my brother full time, which is like really the thing that I'm most proud of. Natalie left her job shortly after I did that to pursue her own thing. Now she's kicking ass, and like as a freelancer having her own business, she never would have known that was possible, or like, I don't know if she would have felt fully comfortable doing it without the padding of the extra income I was bringing in. And so I'm just so glad I did it, because it's made my life maybe a little bit better because I don't have to work as hard, but it's also improved the lives of the people around me, which is amazing. But in terms of just like the straight monetization stuff, so you have Google AdSense, which now YouTube just said that they're gonna make every channel monetize basically. So basically, whether you want to or not, they're gonna be monetizing your videos.
Okay.
So you might as well just do it if you want to get paid, or they'll just take the money from you.
Yeah. And so it's actually that the ad revenue from that is much, it performs much better than I ever imagined, just from the stuff that I've seen. I feel like people have been talking a lot lately and actually sharing numbers, which for the longest time seemed like nothing, like something people couldn't do. But it actually, that is a shifting point for you then, you said.
Yeah, it's significant. It like, I think the AdSense, it's changed obviously over time, but I think it like literally made up for Natalie's salary, which was like,
that's awesome.
That's like a significant amount of money. And then, but really like you actually do make more money through integrations, which is like Squarespace and Skillshare and other people that you might want to partner up with. to do like a little ad read in your videos. The one thing that I recommend for people if they're getting into it is like, I guess it depends on like your audience or whatever, but I've talked to people who have large audiences as well that didn't realize that you could push back against their requests. So some people will be like, hey, like you need to mention this in the first minute of your video. And I'm like, it's going to ruin my video. It's going to ruin the flow. I don't want to do that. And then they're like, okay. So like you can push back. You can say, oh, I don't want to do this. Or, I turn down so many integrations. Like I've gotten to the point where I did too many and I did 2 to 3 a month. And it felt like, even if I got busy, I couldn't say no because I had a contract that I had signed up to. So now the only thing I have Squarespace pretty much for the next year, once a month. And that's like the only integrations that I have. But those are like a amazing source of revenue. Then I do courses. I just built a course platform. You could do Skillshare. I think it's better for creators to kind of own their own content and not give it away to anybody else. Like
I'm on the same
this is like the
page with
whole
that.
record. Yeah, it's a record label thing. It's like, you don't give somebody else ownership to your content. You own it forever. You sell it for as long as you want. And that's been just amazing. And it's just really rewarding to be able to build your own thing and to own your own courses. And I think you and I come from the same world where it's like, we've always seen people create their own courses. I'm like, I'm a content creator. I'm a filmmaker. I don't need anybody's help making a course. I can do it myself. And like, I have the distribution platform. All I have to do is kind of, you could do a teachery or you could do, build your own thing. And there's lots of different ways to do it that don't take a huge cut of your final payment. I think that's like, am I missing anything?
I think that pretty much covers it. I mean, like in terms of sponsorships, the one thing I just wanted to ask, is that something you are pitching or is that, because at this point I imagine inbound is plenty, but early stages when you're like, I have a big enough platform, are they recognizing it or are you recognizing that I should go out and find this?
It's a little bit of both. When I have a company, Space Station, that they manage all those integrations. And so they'll come to me and be like, hey, and like, truthfully, there's not a ton of companies that are advertising on YouTube. I mean, there's a reason why you see Skillshare, Squarespace, Audible in like most videos. It's because there's only like 5 companies, big companies that are doing it. You have all those VPN companies, but I don't work with any of them just because like I'm only going to promote something that I actually use or get value from. And so that just has never made sense. So I do get a lot of people in my DMs being like, hey, like sign up, do this this VPN thing. Can you promote this? And so that hasn't quite worked out. But yeah, like it's a little bit of a mix of both. But now since I like have established, I'm not like seeking any other integration partners. I'm like, and I like if I could just go with Squarespace for the rest of the year, I'm like, that's great. It's solid. It's like they sign a long-term contract. And so it's more of like a partnership for the year. And then I don't have to think about it. I make the decision once and then we're good.
Yeah, makes sense. And I know you have the hard out, so we'll cut it right there. We should definitely do a round 2 at some time and just to chat and I don't know, keep in touch. I know you're busy, but this was great. Thanks for taking the time out.
Yeah. Of course, man. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, I definitely want to catch up less formally next time where maybe we'll have a beer or something.
Yeah, for sure. That'd be awesome. Cool.
Well,
yeah.
All right. Thanks, man.
See ya. I want to thank Matt for joining me on this episode. Be sure to check out the trailer for his brand new documentary, The Minimalist's Less Is Now, which is streaming on Netflix starting on January 1st. And also be sure to check out his YouTube channel, just Matt Diavella. He produces some wonderfully entertaining content, so definitely check it out. That's Matt Diavella. And as always, this episode of Starting Now is brought to you by Built. Built is our platform for getting you started online. Whether you want to start a blog or a business, head on over to built.co. That's bylt.co to get started. Built, your website, built for you simply. Finally, if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Also, be sure to check out the video version on YouTube. You'll find all the links for this episode at built.co/021. Well, that'll do it for this week. Again, I'm Jeff Sarris. This has been Starting Now, and I'll see you next time.